This is day 4 of the September 93 7-day retreat in Springwater. We will start with a question that came up for several people and was discussed at length in a group yesterday. If indeed there is no right or wrong behavior, this is somewhat how the question went. No good and bad. When I look at the world and what is going on, there's judgment in my mind. How can one not judge? The wars, the killings, the conflicts. Someone else putting it differently. It is very difficult for me to identify or have compassion for the rapist, the murderer, the drive-by shooter. And another question, don't we need some kind of moral precepts or commandments to separate right from wrong? To keep society in some kind of order. Starting with the last question first. We have had moral precepts for thousands of years. Forbidding killing, just to take one of the precepts, not to kill, to respect human life, but we have not been able to keep even this one commandment, ever. Not even in the name of God, or maybe particularly not in the name of God. We have had wars as far as we can think back in history. Many of them to defend social, religious, ethnic systems. Bending the rules, bending the commandment that it is all right to kill some and not others. What good has it done humanity to work up these precepts? It seems, some people of course say it's just because we have more media coverage that brings into our homes the incidents of violence. Or is it really that there is increasing violence in this world, in ourselves, expressing itself more freely? With more ammunition, more guns, more explosives at hand, eagerly sold to make money. Who can we point the finger at for this? Who can we point the finger at for a drive-by shooting, a rape, a murder, a killing, mass killing? Ethnic cleansing, holocausts. Is there a world out there that's engaged in this, which is bad, or given to badness, and oneself the judge, separate from all of that? Or are all of us, as we're here in this room, in this state, in this country, on this continent, on this globe, all to one extent or another involved in creating each other in violent as well as peaceful ways? Contributing to the conditions that produce us and our children? And are these a conglomerate of separate entities doing this voluntarily, willingly, knowingly, intentionally? Or are all of us the result of circumstances and a brain functioning in a way which is deceptive, not all of the time, but a lot of the time? Deceiving us about what we are and who you are, what I am, through image building, image attachment, and the emotions that go with imagery of the enemy, the good guy and the bad guy, the reckless one, the violent one, the rapist. The failure in school, the neglected one in the family, the black sheep. Aren't we all totally involved in this image making and image suffering, victims of it? One inquirer has called it the electrochemical smog created by thought in the brain. We suffer from the smog created by industry, and thought creates electrochemical smog in the brain, which prevents clear seeing. Not only prevents clearly seeing who you are as a human being, like myself, a human being, but defending the imagery projected on each other and ourselves, as though it was our life-giving force, protecting the image of myself as male, female, white, black, Jewish, Palestinian, or Muslim, clinging to it with a fervor, as though there was a defense of life, of real life, against death of the other side, or the deadliness of the other side, also imaged. And these images carried from generation to generation. Children picking it up. We were quite shocked, Kyle and myself, this summer. Our grandchildren visited, and we had bought some little mattresses for them so they could carry them around and put them down wherever they wanted to sleep for the night. And on opening the mattresses, Ben said, "I'm not going to sleep on this one." And of course, Adie immediately echoed, her big brother, "I'm not going to sleep on this one." Why not? It was a cartoon of some little dinosaur. I think you never know anymore what is what. And they were sort of giggling and whispering. I said, "What's the matter with this one?" Barney was his name. And Ben said, "He's gay." I'm not going to sleep on him. I was so shocked I didn't know what to say first. Realizing the power of this stereotyped image in my grandson. Quote unquote. I don't really see him as mine, but we're very close. Very close, love each other dearly. And here it's sprouting already in full flower. Prejudice. With its rejecting action. Electrochemical smog in the children, in the children's brains. See, you can't blame him or her. Why blame? Just find out what is going on that produces this and brings about this action where one doesn't see each other, only in terms of cartoons. Because that's what images are, exaggerations of something that isn't completely real in the first place. So will we continue with our habitual judging in terms of good and bad, right and wrong, in terms of what, or examine in terms of what? The assassin, the rapist, the shooter, the drive-by shooter, what is their life? What is their mind? How did they grow up? What care did they receive? What did they imbibe as imagery from everybody around them? And sometimes one could almost say it's in the air. Prejudice is in the air, but it's also carried by words and gestures and ideas implanted so early and so unconsciously, so righteously, because we don't question what we believe in, because our psychological security depends on what we're attached to as right or wrong. That's why we can't examine it, or else my security is going to be threatened. And security guards in terms of thought systems spring into action when I'm threatened. Thoughts and physical responses, verbal responses spring into action when my security as me, as I think or image myself, is attacked or threatened. And strange as it may be, if one thinks about it, all of our possession of ideas is also identified as me. You question my idea, you're questioning me, my integrity. And what is that? We'll come to that later. So the self-images that have been built up in the brain about what I call myself, which is also an image, a thought, shared collectively by all human beings. These thoughts of that I'm good or bad or useless, a nuisance, bad, not as good as the brother, a failure, or wonderful, successful, or promising. All of this collection of imagery includes more than what people have said and talked and told me and felt about me. It includes what this mind and body has become attracted to in terms of examples and heroes. We're identified with a flag. It's an amazingly strange thing to identify with. And yet not many years ago, maybe still now, people could be put in jail for protesting this identity. Identified with national anthems, national costumes. My country, so the border of myself goes, if I'm identified with this country, goes as far as the border of this country. It's a huge me. Switzerland, it's a little me. I was told or read once about a prisoner who just wanted, he was a prisoner in a foreign country, just wanted to touch his Mother Earth once more. And he was granted that. And he was told here, he was taken up the mountains, the border went across the mountains, and he fell on his knees. Then somebody said, "Wait a minute, you're 1 mile short." With which a poem comes to mind that we learned as children growing up in Germany. I'm saying it in English. I want to sink down into my knees on this holy German earth and thank God that I speak German. Or the German language. And when I heard this poem, the way it was put so dramatically and sacredly, it made my heart pound faster. Not so much the content, but the whole form of it. The ritualistic way of putting it had sort of archetypical impact. And the content sort of sinks in with it. Into this mind, into this open childlike mind, and creates electrochemical smog through which one looks down on people speaking differently, with different accent. Of course, other people have an accent. I don't. I have a language. When we arrived in Switzerland after the war, my father found that his secretary, who was Swiss, couldn't speak German properly, and he complained about it. And he very seriously hurt the Swiss consciousness. Swiss people are very proud of their way of talking German. Actually, with each other they talk dialect. They're not ashamed of their dialect. In Germany, you try to get away from that dialect in order not to identify with the common people, at least how I grew up. You had to speak so-called High German, which was as free as possible from dialect. And coming into Switzerland was amazing, that the people in their common, normal contact talk in dialect. So if a Swiss child gets into school and has to learn to read and write, it's very arduous. It's almost like learning a new language, because they have to learn this High German. And it never quite sounds like when a German speaks German, which is, I found it very charming to hear this way of speaking. And my father learned his lesson. So we could talk for the rest of this retreat about all what we identified with. But we can see for ourselves. And the indication that identification is taking place is when we begin to get hurt over something. That's sort of the red flag or blinker light showing up. I'm beginning to defend something or get irritated. Why? We're into the second question, which I wasn't going to bring up right away. Let me see whether we really went thoroughly into the first. Whether there hasn't gotten to be a good and bad or right and wrong, because in looking at the world, this is how I judge it. And we were asking, yes, this is how we came to it. How do we get to do things which are called criminal? Someone mentioned in the group, someone who is a social worker who works with children who are these, or maybe these drive-by shooters. She said the sad thing is, and she didn't say the bad thing, she said the sad thing is that they don't care. They don't care about having killed or hurt someone, because no one ever cared for them. Care is something which is not known to this system of a child, or love. So do we call him bad or her? Or do we try to penetrate the smog in ourselves and others, as well as the outside smog of the conditions in which we allow part of humanity to live, ignoring it, or having ideas that people, if they want to get out of it, they can, if they just had enough willpower or something. In this country, a relatively small bill, I don't want to become political, but it was so shocking, a small bill, $6 million to help inner city playgrounds, some swimming pools, some youth programs, some highway construction to create jobs. It was voted down. Also because of smog in the brain. It doesn't help my city, or it doesn't help my... I don't know. We can look into ourselves, how we identify with bills that come up. and say yes to them or we don't want them. And let's look, are we prejudiced? Do we have ideas which are not founded on any factual knowledge? And do we see how we let things happen? Are we powerless? The bill was voted down. It was one of the few times that I called. I never even know, how do you call a senator? And they have a number in the telephone book, an 800 number. You don't even have to pay for it. And from both different senators, we got eventually long letters why this was either a good or a bad bill. So where are you going to hold on to? To what good and bad? What's good for one is bad for the other. As long as there is identification with my group, my interests, that creates the smog, which prevents clear seeing. Is this mind clearing itself of smog? By coming upon the ideas that create them and questioning them? The prejudices, which we're not even aware of most of the time, but it happens little by little, glimpse by glimpse, that one becomes aware of it. And then will a prejudice that is so deep-seated that it comes up so automatically, so mechanically, at the sight of a person. Will it get in the way? Will it create smog, or just be seen as that and not get in the way of relating to each other as really unknown human beings? Because both you and I are really fundamentally, ultimately unknowable. Because we're not separate from all that exists and has existed and produced this which is sitting here right now. How could it be known? We can attempt to put things into words and books, but it's so limited. Such shorthand, so abstract, helpful for technological advances. Sometimes it's helpful to have known each other for a long time. Kyle and I often say this, it's just so nice to have known each other so long. That makes for a deep bond. And yet, if the moment-to-moment interaction hasn't some newness and nowness in it, it'll get so stale, so mechanical, and generate friction. Coming back to someone saying, I can't really identify with a rapist or a murderer. I don't know whether it's called for to identify with anyone or anything. Identification again being a thought process, complicating things, saying this is me. It is already smogging things up again. Can one just look at each other? Find out about each other? Maybe in this case it may be very helpful to hear a life history. How this person grew up. What happened to him, to her. And then looking within, how similar circumstances would incite one's violence, rage, desire for revenge, desire for destruction of the enemy, or desire for lust, for power, for pleasure, for dominance. Having been stepped upon, kept down, dominated a good part of one's life, a tremendous urge for doing the same to someone else. We can see it in little or big things in ourselves. Wanting to pay back in equal coin, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Amazing, isn't it, that one of the holy books of our tradition states this as a valuable principle. And it has cost not just eyes and teeth. Movies do this sometimes, trying to show the life of someone whom we would ordinarily not even want to think about or look at. A renegade, or somebody who is totally, I don't know what words to use, totally rejected as being utterly irresponsible, criminal, doing atrocious acts. And if a movie manages to portray this person so that we can or do identify with him, as it were, or her, then we don't say he's bad or good. We understand. This leads to that, and that leads to this. And this is the outcome of everything that has happened, not just to this person, but to his family, his society, his civilization and culture. And then maybe there is this stirring of compassion for what has happened to someone who was born as an innocent baby. Just wanting to be held and fed and loved. And maybe receiving too little or none of all or some of it. So does it make more sense? I may have jumped all over the place here. Does it make more sense to let go of judgment and investigate what's really going on? In us, in me, in you, in us together, and therefore in similar ways in other people. Not find fault, but find out. What are the thought and image and emotional processes that give rise to the smog which blinds us, distorts our vision, hides out the truth of ourselves from each other. The truth being we're all human beings, constantly changing, almost infinitely malleable, influenceable, conditionable. And at the same time with this amazing capacity for direct insight into all of that. And in insight, or seeing, or awakening, or awareness, call it whatever one will, in that there is no judgment. That's why it's not smogged. It's clear, because there's no judgment. No imagery. It just reveals imagery and smog in action. Clearly. And by revealing it, it may change. Thought may not have to run in this distorted way once it has been seen, to be distorted and confusing and violence producing. It may, at least for moments, not have to run in that way. Our thinking through insight may become more accurate. And yet, in spite of all its accuracy, never capture this moment which has not been thought about yet, which is new for you and me and everyone. The second question we were going to go into today was, it is relatively easy to see that the word wind or the word crow is not what's happening out there. The word tree is not this magnificent moving or non-moving thing. It's relatively easy to see. The word car is not what's heard there. Why is it so difficult to see that the word I and me does not refer to a real thing, or rather see what it actually is? Why are we so caught up in the word and the idea and the image of myself and don't see it as just word and image? Because getting caught up in it, there may have been a moment of wakefulness, and then getting caught up in it, what is being caught up in seems so real. My concerns, me, the others, it seems so real. And then coming to again, I realize it's just thought and idea. But while it's going on, and it may go on for long periods of time, I don't see its unreality. I'm real, and what I think about others and what happened to me and them seems so real it's taken for the real thing. Why? What am I? What are you? And the question being asked, the brain starts producing, doesn't it? Pictures, ideas, words, scenarios. Or it begins to search for more information about what I am and what you are. Is that clear up to this point? The question arises, what am I, what are you? And does the brain begin producing words, thoughts, remembrances? Or search for what all I am, listing it, cataloging it, if you will. Is that what I am? Or is that what I think I am? And to that thinking can be added infinitely more thoughts. I can think about more and more and more what I am. So our thinking and imaging about ourselves is infinitely expandable. Because everything thought and lived through becomes recorded in the brain and is added to the knowledge about myself, all of my experiences, and the feeling of meanness in the middle of it all. But all what we did right now was thinking, wasn't it? And looking at the thinking. Is that clear? Do I want to know somewhere, somehow, whether all I am is infinitely expandable thinking and imaging and remembering and anticipating of what I'll become, because it is partly included in what I think I am, what I can become? Is there some urge, some place to wonder and maybe want to find out whether this is all I am, what thought and memory and anticipation comprises and has established as a vast network with me in the middle, this me feeling in the middle, as the experiencer of it, the knower of it, the doer of it, the victim of it. The sufferer of it. Is that all that I am? I want to know. I want to find out. I'm not satisfied. No matter how far thought can expand this process of thinking me and mine. it feels limited, doesn't it? Why does it feel limited? Does it feel limited because there's the wind and the crows and the cool air? Not just the idea of those, but the actuality of cool air meeting a sweating body and the coolness of the whole organism. The fragrance. Thought says it almost smells like rain. Someone said to me in a meeting, what we're doing in here and we're talking about, it's also sensuous. It's about hearing and smelling and feeling. Is there more than what the senses provide? The rustling of the leaves, the shaking of a window pane, the cawing of crows. Is that just what the senses provide? Or is there maybe an openness? A vast openness, not with any feeling of limitation or borderlines. An openness in which the senses indeed are awake and functioning, but not fragmentedly, not separately. The smell of the rain is the cawing of the crow and the rustling of the leaves. And is that openness and unlimitedness, because thought is not thinking about limits of time or space, it's quiet. Is that label, can one label that as of the senses? Or can that label too be quiet? So one doesn't know, there's no knowing what it is. Not knowing. And yet alive. Dead to the ideas about it. We will end here for today.